I met with Brian about 2 weeks ago, Brian McMahon, and I met with Jim Madison, who is the facilitator from the provincially supplied facilitator from the provincial government. And we met with Brian and James Madison in Nanaimo, and we went through the water infrastructure agreement that Brian brought forward to us, and it's probably about our, what guys, sixth or seventh revision of it now, so seventh revision, and so we went through it, and I brought back the feedback to the board, and we met at a cow meeting on July the 18th, cow slashing camera meeting, and it was, we basically went through every paragraph by paragraph, to make sure that it was the right agreement for UBID and the landowners of Union Bay. And so I took all of our comments that we put together in that meeting, and I incorporated them into one document. And I very clearly highlighted, where the changes are, and I sent them back to Kensington Island Properties and Brian McMahon, and I guess it would have been the end of last week. And so he was, and we've been going back and forth on, because there's only about 5 or 6 sections that we actually had to change on this one. So, and they were really, they weren't nearly as big as, let's say, as some of the other stuff we've had to change in the past. And I'll run through the highlights of it in a second here. I know you guys are waiting to hear this stuff, so I'll run through some of the highlights in a minute of those points. And but Brian was supposed to have an agreement back to me this week, and I was a little disappointed when I didn't get anything yesterday. But it turns out when I finally got a hold of Brian McMahon that he had a family emergency, and I won't go into any more detail than that. But I know what the family emergency is, and it's absolutely a family emergency. So he was having a hard time, going back and forth with his lawyer to be able to just get the wording quite right from our perspective. So we should have something back from him in the next day or two here. So some of the highlights from the agreement, from the water treatment agreement is we'll basically have 5 years to decommission our current water treatment plant after we deliver water to Brian's subdivision. So that gives us a significant amount of time to be able to decommission our old plant, move our reservoir over to the new site, and so we'll be able to build our new plant, be able to allow the existing plant to stay in place, and we'll have 5 years to be able to basically decommission that property and bring it back to a reasonable state for Brian and Kensington Island Properties. We'll establish, because we'll establish a long-term lease agreement for the 2 different properties with Brian in the short term for both the water treatment project or water treatment plant site, which is on the corner of McLeod and Musgrave. In the agreement, we've got approximately 4 acres approved. So tentatively right now, we're planning on 1 acre down McLeod, and then kind of 4 acres going straight back. So it's like, so basically 4 1-acre plots, right? That goes straight down Musgrave. So that's kind of our tentative plan. And the board's given me approval to get Coors Engineering up there. They'll be up there next week, laying it out from a survey perspective, and we'll also be digging test holes for both from a seismic perspective and also from for septic as well. So they'll just be digging some test holes to figure out what is the best location in that area to be able to put a building, a reservoir, 3 to 4 holding tanks, and a settlement pond. So, and what we would really like to be able to do as well is to be able to keep a green space around the outside of the plant to be able to allow some So it'll really fit nicely into the environment and some of the future plans of enhanced canal projects. And then once the developer or KIP receives their subdivision approval from the CVRD, then that's when that piece of land will be subdivided off, and it will be basically transferred to us for $1. So we'll get that 4-acre piece of land on the corner for $1. So, and also we'll also get at the same time we'll get the fire department land as well. So that's another 3 acres that we're planning on getting, and that's just off of you know where the log cabin is on the passing lane? It's right in behind there. That would be the tentative location in that area for the new fire department, which is great from an access perspective for getting onto the highway and accessing the community. And it's only a kilometer up from where we currently are now. So. And KIP has agreed that when this agreement is signed to pay the development costs to basically upsize the water treatment plant because we have to build a water treatment plant to serve our current community from a Vancouver Island Health Authority perspective, because our current water treatment plant isn't meeting the Vancouver Health Authority requirements. So we have to build a water treatment plant anyways. So what KIP is going to do is they're going to pay the upsizing costs for future use from his perspective. So I think his first plans for subdivision is going to be about 30 to 50 lots, somewhere in that area. So we'll be able to easily serve that with the current water treatment plant that we're going to be building. And then for the future, he's going to pay for all the upsizing of the plant to be able to supply his future requirements, and he's going to pay that up front. So that's going to be a significant bonus for us because we're going to build basically a building that's going to be big enough for two plants. So we're going to have one plant here, and then we're going to have the piping in the ground for a second water filtration system. So we'll build approximately a 14 liter per second water filtration plant in the building, and then we'll have all the piping and all the flanges and all the electrical stuff and everything ready to go. So we can basically bring in another water filtration plant down the road when we need it, and basically bolt it into place at the developer's cost. And so that's basically how that's going to work. And we'll receive that money up front on the developer will agree when this agreement is signed to pay the development costs of the water treatment plant that represents the requirements of the subdivision requirements. And then after like when he starts developing his lots, he'll get his money back through his CEC credits. So every time somebody connects to a lot, like if I was going to build a house anywhere in Eden Bay, and if I bought a lot, and I was going to build a house, I would have to pay $8,900 to the Eden Bay Improvement District to be able to do that. And that's what we use to be able to maintain and put our infrastructure in place to be able to support us. And so every time Brian puts his lots in place and the houses connect, we're going to get our $8,900 back. And so he's going to basically give us the money up front, and he'll receive his money back every time each lot connects.
Yeah, so just to recap, what your board took the position that we're not going to be building infrastructure for Brian. We're building what we require for our infrastructure, which is approximately 14 liters per second. If Brian decides he wishes to contribute now with money up front to make whatever we build easily expandable to accommodate up to 28 liters per second, which is our water license, then he has to pay for it. So he will pay the upfront cost of any upsizing that's required now, and anything else that's going to be required to move to the 28 liter per second point. So if our existing plant that we put in will service our community up to 14 liters per second, at 15 liters per second, Brian or whoever is wanting to upgrade that facility beyond that point is going to have to contribute and purchase a new plant that will take it out to the 28 liter per second point.
Again, I don't mean plant supplying water, I mean the mountains supplying the water
The lake.
to come down.
The studies that have been done so far seem to indicate that we're probably good to, as Gordon said, about 1,050 homes. It's actually, the water license is what regulates it. There is no actual number. That number of lots is an extrapolated number from our water license is 28 liters per second. It can be extrapolated out to about 10,050 homes. Beyond that, no one knows. And we took great care to make provisions in this new agreement that would protect us from having to supply water beyond that point.
So that does, I'm sorry, you have to jump up next time. So that means that our water is safe. Our water is safe. We don't have to worry about running out of water. We don't have to worry that the developer wants to own the water. We don't have to worry about that. We don't have to hear about that anymore, that people are going to say, is the developer going to own the water? Is our water safe? Is there enough water? Is it all okay? Is it all okay?
Yes, I mean, Brian has to, like what trustee Britton talked about earlier, Brian has to follow the same rules within our bylaws as everybody else.
And so everybody knows this now, so it doesn't have to be repeated every meeting?
Yeah, well,
Susanna, when you ran for the election, you did say the board is being run, why would we want a board that is being run by Kip? Which had never ever happened, but that was one of the statements that you were making. So just so you know, the board's not run by Kip.
You said that 3 times, you used yourself.
My name is Sherry Locke, so I'm sorry for not